or neighborhood, just based off of it being in Detroit. So like, if somebody in West Village lives in West Village, there's a 40% chance that that person is going to make a purchase within that mile radius of where they live, which is shows how you say it.
Which is, and that's with limited options. Imagine if there were better options, right? Because before you, we would have been shopping at other places.
Yeah, yeah, you
And
know,
as soon as that was an option, we're like, all right, well, we'd rather be here.
yeah, but like is there a way? Is there a way that we can get over the hump? Like there's a study by the Selig Center of Economic Growth that found that money circulates one time in the African American community, 6 times in the Latino community, 9 times in the Asian community. In white neighborhoods, the money circulates nearly an unlimited number of times. What can we do to help overcome that, especially in a city like Detroit that has such a heavy perception on businesses that open up not sharing the demographic of the cities in which they serve?
I would say probably the biggest thing about that is diversity of businesses, right? So why do you always have to go to somewhere else in these spaces? Because you run out of black businesses to go to. Not to say they don't exist, but it becomes hard, right? So how many black banks do you go to?
Me personally, none. I don't have one right now.
All right, but there's a black bank right down the street from your spot.
You're correct. There is one.
Right. So,
and me being the type of person I am, where I'm always pushing black everything, I've got to invest in my financial institution
but so
as well.
every time you cash a check, money out. You could be putting all your money in First Independence.
We're live right now, and we're gonna go right into it. What's up, Detroit? My name is Godwin Hintugi, and this is the Take Detroit show. Today we have special guest Adam Hollier. Did I say that right?
It's Ollier.
Ollier.
Looks
Adam,
like Hollier, sounds like Ollier.
Okay, Adam Ollier. Adam is currently second senator for the District 2 in Michigan, which encompasses parts of Detroit as well as Hamtramck, Highland Park, into the Grosse Pointe area. And Adam is going to be running for Congress in the 10th District. And what he'll be doing is having his district cover Detroit, Hamtramck, the Grosse Pointes, and Northern Downriver communities. For those at home, in layman's terms, what is the difference between what you're doing currently on a Senate level and what you'd be hoping to aspire on a Congress level?
Well, first, thank you for having me today. It's exciting to be joining you and your audience as we talk about this space. But the biggest difference is scale, right? So right now I represent 250,000 people. Running for Congress, I'd be representing 650,000 people. So the district is almost 3 times as big, and the work is just so much bigger. So I sit on the Appropriations Committee at the state level, and so we appropriate millions and billions of dollars. At the federal level, they appropriate billions and trillions of dollars. And so it just means a lot, right? You touch every avenue in the space. You get to talk about the big policy, and ultimately the buck stops with you at the federal government, right? You start to really be saying, all right, well, we're gonna make these big changes and we're gonna be able to do the big things that haven't been done around housing, right? So when we talk about where we're going as a community, as a space, so much of all of our housing programs start at the federal level, they move to the state and then to the local level. But fundamentally, the guidelines are at the federal level. And so if we change those guidelines, then you have more opportunities at the local level to say, well, I do need this first-time home buyer credit, or I do need, this program so we can renovate and rehab. But most importantly, so that we make sure that the policies that exist are focused on us. Because the last time our federal house policy was really done, it was not done with black people in mind, which is where the real definition of redlining.
I got you. So right now on Senate, and I'm just going based off of history and like looking you up, you were involved with the Public Light Authority, right? Mm-hmm. Public Lighting Authority, right? And so at the time in your involvement, as I read it, Detroit as a city was missing 40% of their lights throughout the 139 square foot miles or so. And so from a state level within this entity, you introduced this?
Yeah, so That happened while I was a staffer. So my former boss, Burt Johnson, who was a state senator, introduced legislation at the state level to get it done. And then I transitioned to working in the mayor's office. And while I was in the mayor's office, we helped create the Public Lighting Authority, and that's what got all the lights on. And so the new director and I helped put together the Public Lighting Authority. So setting up the articles of incorporation, getting it through council, and getting it going, hiring the first executive, the first director to really move the needle. Because we're talking about a decade ago almost, and lights didn't work, right? And some of it was because we didn't have the staff to turn lights on. Yeah. Some of it was because the infrastructure was old.
Detroit was dark too back then.
But the big difference now is lights on every street work, right? And we have LED lights. And so at the time, it was the largest influx of LED lights of any city in the country.
Yeah, and one of the biggest caps in the feather, and most times when an administration currently comes up with the city is, we got the lights turned back on. It's always the point.
A success everybody takes credit for, and that's really the truth, right?
Yeah.
Projects that are successful, 100 people have a big role in it. When it's a failure, it's like, man, that was him. They did that thing. So it's certainly the case that a lot of people were able to do it, but I'm excited that, as a parent, in that space, there will be a moment where I'll be able to tell my kids, hey, you got to be home by the time the streetlights come on. Because back then, if you said that to your kids, maybe you'd see them in a week.
Yeah, so I'm going to give some folks some background here. Welcome to episode 4 of the Take Detroit Show, an internet talk show where we have interesting conversations with interesting people here in Detroit. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going into a little bit of background with Adam Hollier. Did I say it right there?
Yes, you did.
100%. One take. I try to do it
You're doing
when I can. And then we're going to go into a little bit more in terms of breaking down the history. We're going to talk about a little bit of politics. We're going to find out if it really is like House of Cards, or you guys got
not
a
really
bit of brotherhood going on.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anybody getting murked for, it's like, I don't think there are such elaborate conspiracies, but
well,
who knows?
I hear it moves differently in D.C. They got those.
I don't know. That's not happening in Atlanta.
No. And then we're going to play a little game. We're going to play 30 seconds. We're going to throw a couple different sentences at you, a couple phrases, see what you got. All right?
All right.
So.
As long as I don't have to rap, because, my flow is poor.
Well, you don't have to rap, but you do have to go into a little something that might be rap depending on your genre of choice. So
all right.
Music is one of the biggest things, like everyone is always like able to turn on music. You get to identify with the person, see what they're about, So I love to ask everybody this, if you had to drop an album cover and an album tonight, what would that album cover look like? What's the title saying? And what can we expect to hear? Like, what's going on?
Like, let me level set with you.
Okay.
I don't have a musical bone in my body.
Oh, no.
Like, I don't have any rhythm. Like, I tried to learn how to play the saxophone.
Man, you can't say that, though. You got to keep the allure.
We're being real. I make a good sound, got my horn, doing all those kind of things. My teacher, I'm in 6th grade.
Okay.
He's like, let me hold the saxophone. Asked me to tap my foot and clap. It's gone, done everything. I think I'm gonna have a lot of production quality from my brother. I think maybe my best goal would be like being, somebody who just kind of says one thing on the song, but it's really someone else's song. I think that's my best bet.
So you're gonna be doing features?
Yeah, lots of features.
Okay. Well, hey, look, man, DJ Khaled, he a feature legend.
Yeah.
Was it DJ Clue, Desert Storm?
I'm excited about that, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's gonna be something upbeat, right? Like, I'm having a good time. It's gonna be fun times, right? There's probably some good workout music on there.
Okay, right.
I see,
little workout bops, some gym bops. All
Yeah,
right. Right.
Maybe like some 80s album cover action, right? Like some birds and fire and cool stuff.
Okay, all right, I'm with you. So, your parents are also in the politics for the most part, right? You got your father who is a firefighter, also a captain, and he was also involved in department training and the health department level, correct?
Yep.
And then your mother was in social work. Did she work with the city as well?
No, my mom worked with the YWCA, and she worked at the state level for a little bit, you know, in the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
Yeah, my family has always been in service, right? That's family business. We take care of other folks. We do the hard work.
Right.
So my dad was a firefighter. My mom's a social worker. My older sister is a federal agent. My brother was a firefighter before he got injured and retired. And my little sister's a school administrator.
All right. So you guys just grew up, and the family business was to run into burning buildings and help people. Mm-hmm. Man, I would be like, nah, I need this ice water. I
prefer my water at room temperature.
Yeah. And you know what? It's better to drink the water at room temperature. It prevents the shock to your system.
Does it really?
Yeah, you know, drinking cold water generates a normal harshness within your system upon intake. So you want to drink water at room temperature. It's able to better get within your system and also hydrate you better. Against common beliefs, you know, if you're tired, gasping for air after a good hard workout, warm water is going to hydrate you a lot better than the cold water, even though it feels like the cold water is more refreshing. It's just the myths of immediate gratification.
All right, I can respect that. Better for you long term.
Right. So today's episode is brought to you by Replay Cafe. Replay Cafe is a video game cafe on West Grand Boulevard, right down the street from Woodward Avenue. They've been great partners, and this is where we record all of our shows and studio content. As a business owner and someone that works with business owners, supporting small businesses and providing resources to them is something that is very, very near and dear to me. I want you to really talk about your outlook on small businesses and small business owners in this community, especially Detroit.
Small business owners are the foundation for our economy, and they are especially for black folks. Right? When we talk about who's going to hire us, it's people that look like us from our neighborhoods, from our community. So as we talk about the importance of dollars recirculating in our neighborhood, it's important for us to start where we talk about that, right? So people are like, hey, well, where do you get food from? You. I come to your restaurant. Like, that's how we got connected, because it's like, oh, it's a black guy, it's a restaurant in my neighborhood? That's what, yes. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm glad the food was good, because that's why we come back. But we started because it's like, oh, that's a black-owned business. And as we talk about those kind of things, it's trying to incorporate that into every opportunity, is to say, well, how can I buy one more thing from a black person? How do I hire more people who are in this space, right? So I have worked really hard to make sure that I have black staffers, because I have to give people that first opportunity to come up in the ranks and to build and grow, because they understand my community and the neighborhood and the district. And as we talk about how do you build small business owners, it is by developing those relationships and connecting the dots. So when I go into a meeting with a large business and they're talking about how they want X or Y or Z or whatever, say, well, who in my community do you do business with? When y'all are having a catering event, who do you call? When you are looking for snow removal, who do you go to? When you're talking about the sub on this contract, who is your prime? It is making sure that I am laser focused and always intent on making sure that our people are in the primary space in these discussions. And that's everything. It hasn't happened as much as we'd like it to be, but it's a forward moving progress.
You know, it's something that I don't think we talk enough about within the communities. At Young Village, we really focus on making sure that we hire internally within the community. Our staff is 90% people of color, and we specifically work with as many vendors of color as we can. All of our beers, wines, and spirits, for example, are all people of color. About 85% of the mixers that we use to make cocktails and of that nature are from brands of color, purveyors of color. Even the bottled water that we get is from a water distributor of color. And so we really try to focus a lot on these aspects, because, as you say, it's very important, especially in a city like Detroit. There was a study done in about 2015, 2016, before the world as we know it was happening, in which large-scale surveys were done with secondary and tertiary market cities such as Detroit, Pittsburgh, in which they specifically referenced Detroit as having one of the highest percentages of people that made specific purchases relative to their respective communities. Someone from Livernois is buying from Livernois up to a 41% chance, depending on them being a JP Morgan Chase card user.
Right.
What do you feel that we should be doing more of on all levels to support our businesses of color, given the fact that we know we will support?
I think it's all about intentionality, right? So it's easy to the easiest place to buy a thing is on Amazon, right? It's like, I would like this thing, it'll be here right now, right? Like that is the easiest thing. Now, if you want to buy something from a black person, you got to say, all right, all right, I know a black person in this space. I want to ask for a black person in this space, right? Like a doctor, right? Is your doctor black? Is your attorney black? Is your accountant black? You have to make a conscious effort in every single one of those discussions, because the default, because we live in America, is that a white person or not a person of color would do those kind of things. And it's not to say that you can only operate in those spaces, but if that's a priority for you, you have to be intentional about every single piece of that discussion, because otherwise it'd be too easy, right? Like, who's your landscaper? What do you have control over? And start to really internalize, okay, did I even try? Versus, did I just do the thing that was easy, right? And I think that's the start and the end of those kind of things, right? Like, a lot of people talk about the leakages out of our economy. So much of that is just because there's certain businesses that we aren't in, right? So most people's biggest leakage is in their banking, right? And people say, well, I just bank with so-and-so. Well, there's First Independent. Those same kind of complaints and comments about white institutions. Well, we have ours if we would patron them.
No, that's very good. And to your point, in talking about patronicity, are you familiar with a lot of what's happening within the North End in terms of community activism that's going on?
I mean, I live, born and raised in the North End. I live in that community. My mom grew up in the North End. And as we talk about all the stuff going on, there's just a ton going on, right? So I sit on the board of Vanguard Community Development Corporation, which is, building housing and doing those kind of things. I was just...
Is that specific to that neighborhood?
Yeah, to the North End, yep.
Okay.
And so I was just talking to Sonia Mays, and her organization is building affordable housing, building housing in these spaces, right? In the North End. The Knight Foundation is in...
Part of the North End community?
I mean, I would say it's part of me. It's certainly not part of the North End, but I think congregation has been really engaged and has been good to the space.
What is the North End for people who don't know?
Now you're trying to get people in trouble. So the North End is, so people say, first, people live on the North End because it used to be the North End of the city of Detroit. So it's the area south of Highland Park, bounded by Woodward, 75, Highland Park, going down to the Boulevard. That's the North End.
All right, so it's like that pocket.
It's that pocket.
Okay.
And so as we talk about these spaces, there are lots of stuff going on. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the neighborhood has gotten cool, right? People want to live in the North End. People want to invest in the North End. And they want to invest in the North End because property values, and that is called property values.
What's the demographic makeup of North End right now?
I don't know. I know that when I was growing up, it was almost all black. And
it doesn't seem that way now.
Oh, it's certainly not that way now. I mean, I think during the pandemic, I saw a lot of changes, right? You saw so many more white families pushing little baby stroller carriages. You see people out running today.
Yeah,
you see people
jogging is one of the.
I mean, yeah, bro. Like, my wife and I lived at our house for 11 years. I had a white neighbor who lived, a couple blocks from me, and he didn't feel safe running by himself in the neighborhood. And today, it's not uncommon to see 4 or 5 white women running in the middle of the night, early morning by themselves in groups. You see cycling.
That's got to be good for the city's potential economic growth, right? Like that. All of this, because I would remember being afraid to run around at night, and now I still am like on guard, but there's more.
We're talking about little white women running with noise canceling headphones, over the ear joints, running in the dark, right? Like, that's safe, and that is not uncommon.
When Woodbridge used to be called Hoodbridge, like around that time, and then it slowly started to change and transition. That's pocketing everywhere. Do you feel that we are getting enough opportunities within communities as these transitions happen?
I mean, certainly not if you're talking about black folks, and for tons of reasons, right? So when we talk about the undercapitalization of black businesses, when you talk about the systemic racism that led to redlining, there are a number of white folks and white communities that were able to move out of the city of Detroit, gain wealth in their move, and accrue wealth throughout that entire process, and are now making purchases in the city in the North End that are increasing values. I'm glad they're here, right? It's important to have people who have resources to come. It's important for people to want to opt into neighborhoods. We just have to make sure that people who are here, who have been here, are able to take advantage of opportunities. And so I was just having this conversation with Linda Little, the CEO of Neighborhood Service Organization, about this housing crisis that we have right now, because there is no such thing as real affordable housing in our communities.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because like when I hear you talk, I definitely see the passion behind what you're saying. But like whenever I meet an individual like you, I'm always curious as to what fuels that fire. Like you didn't grow up in the mean streets of North End with your hand in the air saying, I'm going to fight for these people's rights.
Yes, I did, in fact, right? So, like, I grew up on Atkinson, right? Like, I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life, right? Like, so my dad ran into burning buildings.
Who was the mayor when you were growing up?
So, when I was very young, Mayor Archer got elected, and also, as a little kid, Coleman Young was the mayor.
Okay,
so Mayor Archer was the mayor during...
Did you consciously recall the aspects of the Coleman Young legacy when you were a child?
Not as a child. I understood Coleman Young's legacy as an adult.
Okay.
As a child, though, I did meet with Mayor Archer. So when I was 10 years old, I convinced my dad to take us to the Million Man March. And so we went to the Million Man March with the Black Firefighters Association and the Phoenix Association. So we're down there.
It must have been powerful to see.
Oh,
as
man,
a child.
you see brothers from every avenue you go in, and just buses everywhere, like every street, just buses on buses on buses and buses and buses. And you get onto the National Mall, and you're like, it's people like this, and it's just brothers, right? Like grown men, young, little kids like myself, kids younger than me, old folks. I mean, and I was sitting there thinking, I was like, Dad, how do they know how many people are here? And he was like, well, they take aerial images and they look down, and I was like, Dad,
you see that picture?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so you'll see in this moment that there are people from one spot all the way to the other. And so my dad took, the firefighters took that photo to Mayor Archer. And so as a 10-year-old, it's Mayor Archer, and my dad told the story about how it happened. And talking to the mayor, and I'm like, he's like, it's weird that we find people who see a problem and immediately want to find a solution. He's like, you should think about this. So at 10, Mayor Archer was telling me I needed to get in the game. So here I am today.
Mayor Archer tells you at age 10 you need to get in the game, and ever since then you've been a champion for these workers' rights. It sounds like a fairy tale.
I mean, I've been very blessed, right? So my dad is only alive because of union work rules, right? So every year they fought for a four-man ride, which made sure that there was a person who literally pulled my dad out of burning buildings. So I went to Cornell, where I got a bachelor's in industrial and labor relations, and I was a volunteer firefighter in that space because I know just how important it is to serve, but also to take care of people. And Detroit's a union town. Michigan is a union state.
Did your father have to run and do anything during the '67 riots?
No, my dad became a firefighter in '85. As a matter of fact, right after I was
Okay.
After, yeah. So he was a paramedic before then. But there weren't really very many opportunities to be a firefighter in Detroit before Young got elected. So my dad even being able to be a firefighter was a direct result of Young pushing it. But the day that Young got elected, my dad got pulled over by some white cops who pulled him over, and they were like, "Oh, you're real happy." Put a gun to my father's head. I was talking about it because what people don't remember is Mayor Young was running against a police commissioner, and Mayor Young was running to push back on police brutality. You'll remember organizations like Stress. You know, he was talking, it's like, got to get rid of these folks who were riding around just basically oppressing black folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, as we were talking earlier, I don't know if we caught any of that earlier convo, under Mayor Young, quite a lot of people from the communities of color were shepherded into the middle class because of their ability to hold these positions that weren't normally afforded to them. And direct result.
I mean, tons, right? Like, it wasn't just fire. He was like, all right, we're going to hire one white guy, one black guy, one white woman, one black woman.
It's across the board.
It was, that's how we moved into a space where there was some degree of parity in the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's definitely magic in the making here. So what, I know you said it's not like this. What, is there any type of fraternity, brotherhood? You're in a fraternity, right?
Yeah, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It was founded at Cornell University, and you know, excited about the opportunity. And so many of the folks who have been important in my life are members of my fraternity, right? So,
does your fraternity still do steps and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, no rhythm, so I'm not. You know, I made through what I needed to do. My line brothers took good care of me, and we were able to make something work.
Okay.
But I got my first job from an Alpha. Buzz Thomas was an Alpha. Mayor Archer was an Alpha. As we look out into these spaces, there have been so many men who have supported me along this journey who were Alphas. And that really makes a difference. You know, as we talk about, you know, a brotherhood in the political space, one of my colleagues, Senator Marshall Bullock, who is a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and some of the other lobbyists and some of the other folks that, you know, around the black political space created an organization called Brothers Under the Dome to help connect black people in Lansing who are in this space around these shared ideas, around opportunities, to make sure we were taking care of each other and talking to each other.
Right, okay. So is there a situation within the black political brotherhood where you guys are automatically giving the nod to each other? You know, like if I see a black chef within the space, I'm like, all right, you know, we looking out for each other, you know, no blood on our hands here, like automatic truce in the competitive space that is the business, you know. Like, at least that's how I look at it, you know, for the most part. Is there anything like that happens within the political space? I feel like you guys have to be more conniving and like...
I don't. I certainly try and do everything I can for other black elected officials, right? Like, and people who are trying to break out to the space, you know, whether they be staffers or not. You know, it's really important. I think it goes back to the idea of who you're patroning, right? So I'm not going to be in the seat that I'm in forever. I'm not going to be in it for that long. I've got to make sure that there was someone else who can come up into the space, because that's how I got into these seats, was because of people like Buzz Thomas, like Coleman Young, like Mayor Archer, you know, like Hanson Clark, people who were in these spaces and were like, hey, brother, I'm saving a seat for you. Come sit down. And then when they were ready to move, they didn't say, hey, I'm going to die in this seat. They said, brother, you've been sitting here with me on my right hand. Now it's your turn.
Right,
I'm going to help you get there. I'm going to help you build into the space.
Hanson Clark had quite a lot of involvement within the arts and making sure that we continue to keep arts and arts programming within the youth upbringing system, which is, I think, something that the Young administration also did as well. Do you mirror any of those? Is that something that's important to you?
It's absolutely important to me. I certainly can't take as much credit. You know, Hanson was a fine arts major. He was a painter. Like, he's a real artist, right? And so I think my role in these spaces is to support folks who have that passion in them. And so in the last budget, I got money for the Motown Museum, and they hadn't been funded, you know, forever. So we're talking about $1 million so that they can continue the project, that they have the expansion, and so that they can really get back to doing real programming to give kids the exposure in this space. Right. Because people need to know that Motown didn't just happen because we had these incredibly talented people. They had a system, right? They brought you in and they were like, all right, brother, this is how you dance. This is how you sing. This is how you crank it out. And they got folks who were young, and they built them right out of the school system that had performing arts programs. And so we want to see those kind of partnerships come back together so people know how to do it. right? When you started your restaurant, I'm sure it would have been easier if somebody had been saying, all right, Godwin, this is how you come out of high school. This is how you manage the finances of the business. This is how you do location stuff. You kind of had to muddle your way through some of those kind of things. And the more that we can make systems that provide you the pipeline, the more successful you're going to be. Because the restaurant business is hard. And it's impressive that you've been still in it this long.
You know, I tell people it's like 1 in 3 make it out of the first 18 months. And then of that, 1 in 3 make Hey, we're
so
right there.
That means that if y'all are hungry today, you need to be hitting up Yum Village because the food is delicious. I would recommend the lemon pepper jerk chicken.
Hey.
It's the best. I prefer the boneless, but you know.
Some people get bone in. Yeah,
those chickpeas, though. You never had such delicious chickpeas.
When we first started that, I would have never said, yo, chickpea is going to be the thing that bangs out on this menu.
Bro, they bang out. Every day I'm always like, hey, man, how do you make them? He's like, buy them. No, but how do you make them? It's like, by ordering them. It's like, all right.
Well, listen, for the people at home, right, you know, what is it like to be an incumbent running for office?
It's really interesting, right? So 4 years ago when I was running, I had to say, hey, guys.
I want to interrupt you. Yeah. I don't like the way